Hi guys, welcome back to Clockwork Noodles, the channel where we continue to break down the anime of winter 2021, and we are slowly approaching the end of the season, and it's been one hell of a season. There's been a lot of cool anime out there, there's been controversies, it's been a fun one, so make sure you guys are subscribed so you will very shortly find out what my top 3 anime of winter were, and what am I watching next season and what do I plan to break down. I have great news, I have finished the video and it is scheduled to go up on the 20th of March. The schedule afterwards, which will replace the main video on the channel anyway, that will go up on the 24th, so you can see the exact schedule for the releases and when I'll be bringing out videos. So I hope you guys find something on that list that you plan to watch and will be joining me with. Make sure as well you are on the Discord channel where you get notified whenever videos go live, and I also give you updates if there are any delays or anything. So continuing onwards with Kemono Jihen, we are on episode 10. We don't have many episodes left. I'm getting quite sad now. We're slowly getting to the end of it. We've had Shiki's story, so naturally Akira's backstory. It seems to also be getting the 2-episode treatment, so I can at least see the very final episode being a kind of a wrap-up and maybe setting forward the foundations for a second season. We definitely don't have enough time to talk about Akabane this season. This week we are focusing on Akira's twin. We knew there was a twin. They had both been born to the Snow Village, a rarity for being male. And it seems that Akira's twin Yui, he is actually floating around the town. He's actually closer than we actually thought he would be, and he also appears to be in quite a foul mood. It is also quite sad as well that poor Akira gets called a girl, even by some drunks, and from a very badly drawn scribble. God to hand it, I don't think Yui has the artistic skills that I think perhaps Akira may have. But the bad mood extends and we start to know something is very, very wrong when he actually freezes a person. From that, we see that he has extreme control over his powers compared to Akira and is also very, very powerful. This week, Kabane being again the ball of joy that he really is, and I love how innocent he really is being, and he's being quite forward. When we find out that Nissan, the llama/plush thing, ends up somehow having his seam split, I don't know how that actually happens, that is still the mystery of the episode. He actually takes it quite seriously, and he says it even with quite a straight face. He's like, oh no, his organs are spilling out, and it's just the straight face with Kabane, and I love how he is, and he kind of reminds me of Drax from the Marvel Universe. He's very, very straightforward, and at times he just takes things literally, which I think is what Kabane also does, with a bit more of a cuter appeal than Drax did. But who would have thought that Mihai would actually be quite a good sewer? To be fair, he's had a long time to get different skills. I think if I was in his situation, living forever, I probably would study absolutely everything and try and get as many skills in my book as I can, just because I'd be bored otherwise. Apparently, the face on this llama plush is the same as Akira's brother. I am not quite seeing it. For one, Akira's brother has beautiful blue eyes, and sure, he's angry, but the llama isn't angry enough. But this is the amazing things that server maintenance will do for you. Mihai actually ends up doing quite a good thing. Thankfully, Mihai actually puts in the AI because that comes in handy a lot this episode. But he does achieve quite a bit when there is a bit of server maintenance on. With the backstories flicking back to when the two were younger, we do see that Akira was always the more sensitive of the two, and Akira's brother was always the one who would look after Akira. I think they are apparently the same age. I think Akira's brother is like a second or two older than him, but he is the one taking on essentially a older brother role where he really does care about his brother. So there's no doubt, even with the actions of this episode, Akira's brother does care deeply for Akira. The point of view narration, when we go back to look at the backstories, we see it in the Yui version. So Yui's the one who actually gives us the narration. He's the one who also kind of tells us about their mum being dead. So there's definitely not going to be a happy ending here. We're not going to have the same as Shiki where the mum is actually alive. But hopefully the resolve at the end of this story will be that the twins see eye to eye, the twins have each other, they get their happy reunion, and whatever's bugging Yui is handled nicely. Because we also don't have the chance that Dad's coming back, because the dad is shown to have completely lost his mind. So the story this time revolving around the idea of love for brothers and siblings, and a different kind of love, which the Kemono Jihen definitely seems to focus in on is like the idea of relationships Akira's misfortune this episode, continuing. What's worse than a needle in a haystack? Well, apparently a sandman dying in a bunch of sand and having to determine what is a remain and what isn't. I can imagine that has just topped the idea of finding a needle in a haystack. I love Cabernet. Cabernet really does make Kemono Jihen for me, just how innocent he is. And regardless of having a cold noodle, he still eats it happily. He's accepting of whatever is given to him. We actually see Shiki exploding in a Bakugo fashion. I've always said that Shiki really reminds me of Bakugo. This week, definitely, when he totally explodes and finally has had enough of the constant breakages, the constant bad luck with Akira. But we do get to see Cabernet trying his best to console Akira, but it kind of fails because of how straightforward and blunt Cabernet is. He doesn't quite understand that sometimes his words need a little bit of sugarcoating, just a tiny bit. And he basically calls Akira useless, but he tries to essentially say, I like you for you, and it's okay for you to be you. But it kind of comes across as him just saying, well, you're useless, that's all you're ever going to be, but I like that. It kind of comes across wrong, but you can see he has good intent of what he's trying to say. And Akira decides that he's going to go on an adventure, leave for a bit, but he does leave with no money, which is a bit weird because I do believe that these guys do have a bit of money from the work that they do for Inagami, but because even last episode, Shiki says that he can't look after his mum and his sister on the wage he's getting. So it is definitely get a wage, but Akira's kind of left without any of it. And somehow in a very busy Tokyo, he actually finds his brother very, very quickly. But this entire episode, we can see the reason why the twins wanted to leave. The twins ended up wanting to run away to Tokyo, somewhere which was outside of the restrictions. The place they lived was very, very restricted, but we do see that they are weighted on hand and foot with attendants. In the end, they ended up being split up. Yui was going to go and find Akira a bit after, so he actually ends up staying for a bit, and I can imagine where things kind of go wrong. Something with him staying a little bit later has turned him into what he is. So the difference between the two of them is just absolutely massive. We see that he's got a bit more of a stern appearance. He's he's firmer. He's not as excitable as, or in a sense, as carefree as Akira is. And he also has a temper. We've seen that temper, where he's actually got huge magical abilities, the ability to control his powers. And he creates that Japanese-style castle. I like the style of castle. It's a bit ironic because I've been stuck in Minecraft making a style castle like this. So I kind of feel like everywhere I look right now, all I'm seeing is Japanese castles. And it's getting to me, guys. But this castle is absolutely insane. There's a possibility as well, Akira was referencing Frozen when he was talking about seeing an ice castle from a show in a movie. I mean, it's also likely as well that he, out of all the characters, is very likely to have an interest in Disney. I can imagine him being quite a Disney fan. But the ability to create houses and stuff, very, very useful skill to have. I've got to say, Yui, I am very, very jealous. But would I want a load of things made out of ice? Very good in the summer. You'd be able to cool yourself down quite a bit. But you can tell something is up because Akira ends up with his phone destroyed. But we also see that he's absolutely happy to fulfill all of Akira's very fancy demands. So he has the chandelier, the bathtub, the canopy bed. He is very happy to do all of that because he does care for his brother very, very much. But with him destroying the phone, you can kind of guess that he doesn't like social media. He doesn't really want to be tracked or anything. Or he finds the modern day lifestyle with all the technology and stuff, as he says, polluted. With the way he's doing this, he's denying Akira the one thing that he actually loves, because Akira loves social media. It's one thing that makes him happy. He gets gratification whenever he has a like or a comment. And he ends up actually locking up Akira, so Akira can't go nowhere. And it does take Akira a little bit of a moment to realise what the situation really is. But this is also where that AI in that toy comes in handy, because he still has an AI. Absolutely loving the relationship between Shiki and Cabernet. The brutally honest Cabernet and the very oversensitive Shiki. Shiki showing us a bit of a sensitive side as he ends up burning something, and Cabernet's trying to be brutally honest about the fact that it's probably mainly your fault, but I'll take some of the blame. Really, really absolutely love those dynamics. Just the way Cabernet is allows him to really have some fun with the other characters when he comes to mixing with them. The two are really, really fun to watch, but we also start to see the gaps where Akira would actually the gaps in. So Akira may not be the best. He's a very, very clumsy character, but because of his positivity, his fun outlook, his carefree lifestyle, he actually helps both of them bring in that extra energy that we need in the mix. Akira is also stated to know Shiki, and Kabane isn't quite there yet. So having Akira around actually is very, very important, and the two start to realize what they're missing when Akira has vanished. But Akira has been updating his social media, which is fantastic because it actually allows everyone to track him down. Although I think with the presence of the press being there, I think eventually, even if they hadn't checked social media, Inagami and that lot would have found the castle eventually, because that castle isn't really something that is subtle. So even if Akira's brother was fearing the idea of being tracked down and he didn't want people to find him, that castle is kind of a giveaway, so it was bound to gain attention at some point. We also learned that Inagami was apparently owed a favour by Inari, which sadly gets blown up this episode. And it's quite sad because it's nice to know that Inagami had a foot above Inari at some point. At this point, she's now on the same level as him. But he ends up shooting straight away at Yui because he can kind of sense that something is amiss and he's actually got hostile intentions. The center of why Yui is so powerful, it turns out that he has a null stone. So it looks really, really like the life stone, but apparently it is kind of the opposite of the life stone. And this stone actually allows him to bring death. So we are told that the stone should technically be still in the village and it can only really be controlled by those who know ice, but it's not there. So that is the big question, is why does Yui have it? Has he got it through bad means? So how did he get the stone? Did he do something to the rest of the village to get the stone, or did they give it to him with an idea in mind? So very, very interesting mystery there. I think we'll probably learn the answer next episode. Yui ends up thanking Inagami. Obviously, he owes him a lot for looking after his brother, but then he commits to attacking them, where we also learn that Shiki is vulnerable to ice. So theoretically, if Akira could control his powers, he's actually probably stronger than Shiki in a battle between just those two. Cutting back to our toy llama, who really is playing a very important role this episode. The llama actually ends up offering a body scan to Akira, so some very interesting skills that thing has. That AI is just so smart. It starts to give me Iron Man vibes. I seem to be on quite a Marvel role at the moment. But I am very jealous of that creation. That creation seems to be very, very handy. Handy to have, especially if you didn't have an iPhone on you or anything. But it does make wonder, does the AI need charging up somehow? How is that thing powering itself? What is the battery life on the AI? Also, what happens if the AI ends up outside of a Wi-Fi zone? The main theme starts to play on the piano. It's light, it's very, very nice. And I was initially thinking it might be the twins theme, but I don't think it is because of what happens next. I think it is a sad theme. I think it's supposed to be there to be quite sad, as brother Yui has indeed fulfilled Akira's wishes. He's given him absolutely everything that he could possibly want, apart from obviously the social media aspects. But Yui has frozen up our gang, and it's just, we end on Akira's shock of realizing that his friends, the people who care about him, are now frozen, and you don't know if they're dead, you don't know if they're injured or they're in a critical state, because especially with learning that Shiki can't deal with ice, and here he is completely surrounded in ice. Very, very concerning ending. So the questions following this week's episode: what happened to Yui? Why is he the way he is? How will Akira reach Yui to save and unfreeze the others? It's definitely going to come down to Akira at this point, because the rest of our gang are frozen, so we can't rely on them. It's all going to come down to Akira standing up to Yui. The null stone as well isn't where it should be. It should apparently be in the village, so why does he have it? And what is the effect having on his body? Because he's got a very cold heart at this point, so is it a sense that he needs to be unfrozen, or his heart is essentially frozen? But this episode, we do see that Yui does love his brother. He will do absolutely anything for him. However, it is overbearing and a toxic love. Keeping somebody locked away through your fear of losing them is actually a bad thing. You're not letting that person be free. He's also denying Akira the one thing that he absolutely loves. I think next episode, we need to see Akira stepping up, actually speaking to Yui. Because this episode, we've seen that Akira is pretty accepting of whatever his brother does. So he breaks his iPhone. He kind of accepts it. He doesn't stand up for anything. I think the next episode, Akira needs to find a voice and stand up to talk to Yui and say, wait, this is wrong. Those are my friends. Stop it, kind of thing. So a very, very good episode. I really enjoyed it. I think these are going to be a fun 2 episodes to get the backstory to our characters. Is it a possibility at the end we're also going to have Yui joining the gang, a bit like how Shiki's sister did. Perhaps at the end, he'll just be a side character who comes in and helps the gang when needed. Will be interesting to see where it goes. I'm worried for my boy. My boy Inagami is currently in a frozen state. Everybody is frozen statue right now, so if it does turn out that Yui can control his powers and also bring them back to life, which is what I think that Nullstone does, it's supposed to destroy and create. So it's a possibility that he can use that Nullstone to bring everybody that he's frozen back to life and unharmed. Very interesting to see where we go next episode. Loving it to pieces. I hope you guys too are enjoying Kemono Jihen. We don't have many episodes left, so I at least want to start getting to tell you guys how much I appreciate you guys tuning in. It's been a very quiet season on the channel, which is quite sad, but I do appreciate everybody who has tuned in and everybody who has followed me throughout the season. Thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing hopefully some of you guys again for next season when I tell you guys what I'm watching, and hopefully you guys will be joining me too. Have a good day, guys. Bye bye.